Today in the Diz List, we discuss the top 5 things we want to see happen the next 5 years at Walt Disney World.
Welcome to the Diz List, the podcast that ranks everything in Walt Disney World. I'm Nick.
And I'm Rob, and welcome to episode 60, where we discuss the top 5 things we want to see happen the next 5 years at Walt Disney World.
That's a mouthful, but the reality is it's what we want, right? These are 5 things we want in the next 5 years because they can be done in the next 5 years. This isn't a wish list to get done next year. That's unrealistic.
Let's call it the top 5 at 5.
Yeah, the top 5 and 5.
That's like a radio station would do that too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, the top 5 in 5? Top 5 in 5.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So before we get started, unfortunately, I screwed up something last week when we recorded our recap show. I was thinking about timing of when stuff was going to be released.
Yeah.
And I promised my friend, who is currently on his way down to the campgrounds, which I've never done. So I'm interested when he comes back to get his feedback. But I promised I'd give him a shout out. So this is a shout out to my friend Pat, who at this point is not driving back from Disney.
Right.
Because I guess I screwed up the timing. But he'll hear this and he'll send us a message on Instagram.
Yep.
And it is my invite for him to give me his takeaways about camping there, because I've never camped there. Have you ever?
I would love to. I mean, I've discussed it with my wife. We've kind of gone back and forth about someday renting like a camper, or a motorhome or whatever you call them, driving down, doing that, and then driving back up to New York.
Yeah, I think it's his camper, to my knowledge, and that's something a lot of my family does, a lot of my friends do. Living in the Adirondacks, that's something you do. So I think it's probably a level of comfort that doesn't exist even in a hotel room, even though you have maybe lesser amenities. But they're not really.
Not necessarily.
Well, I mean, it's lesser amenities than a hotel room, right?
Yeah, but you're bringing like a full kitchen depending on your motorhome.
I guess my idea of hotel room, because I'm in a DVC with a full kitchen and a washer, dryer.
Yeah, that's true.
But I guess I would give up comfort. I would give up amenities for comfort, and so I think it's going to be very interesting. I'm really, when I was thinking this morning about how we're going to open up this show, and then I was like, oh shoot, I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw that Pat was driving down. I was like, oh, I forgot the release schedule, and I thought that, if I'm recording this today, then it's going to release Wednesday, and he's going to hear it while he's either driving down or back.
No, but we're a week ahead, actually.
Yeah, and I forgot. Yeah. That's my fault. So that's why I want to make sure I give a shout out, and he can. I said, maybe your girls will think you're like super famous now, Pat. So, but
he's more famous than us.
Yeah. So I really want to know what it was like, just because, when you're comfortable like that in a camper. Like my mom had campers for a while. She doesn't have one now, but like I can remember going and staying at her house and staying in the camper, and it's comfortable because it's like something you always stay in. It's not a hotel room. You don't have to go downstairs and like talk to somebody at the front desk, or you're not dealing with that. You're in a place that really is yours. But like at Disney, at Fort Wilderness, you've got a pool, you've got all the restaurants, you've got all that Disney has to offer.
Horseback riding, fishing,
and in the middle of the day,
archery.
In the middle of the day, you want to go back? Cool, you go back. You're in basically your home.
Yep.
Because for a lot of people, at least a lot of my friends from home, that's something they do a lot of during the summer.
Yeah.
So it's just a different location. That's kind of cool.
My grandmother was literally the opposite scenario, where she had a camper or a motorhome. You hear them called all different things, but
one has a motor, one gets towed.
This had a motor. It was maybe a Winnebago. I don't know.
So Class B probably.
Yeah, and she lived in Orlando and would drive up north to visit us in New York and stay in her camper.
No,
that's
that's
the exact opposite situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great thing to do. I would love to do it. I would consider renting a camper just for that, because I don't currently own one. I would love to have one that I could tow behind my truck. You get down there, and now you don't have to rent a car. You have your car, and you brought your accommodations.
We were talking
kind of a
about
cool
that
idea.
too, because I got a smaller truck, but it'll still haul a little thing.
Yeah, it would be. You could take certainly a pop up or something like that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind that either.
Yeah, so I'm interested. So Pat, this is your cue to let us know on Instagram what it was like camping down there, because it's something I would like to let our listeners know as well. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, because this just happened, so I know this is like just the news is dated at this point, but they just reopened. They reopened Haunted Mansion.
Yep.
Did you see pictures?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I think with this whole Haunted Mansion stuff, there's a lot to unpack here, but I'm not going to make this a huge diatribe here. My short statement is, I realize that Walt Disney's vision is things are not going to stay; they're going to evolve, and it's going to be. It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who are upset about potentially, and the Hatbox Ghost isn't there yet. He may be.
Right, which I told you was not going to actually happen.
Right. If they have the Hatbox Ghost where people are speculating it is at the beginning, some people are upset because Madame Leota is supposed to conjure the ghost.
Yeah, timeline-wise.
Right. Maybe because I do a podcast and I'm a huge Disney person and a Haunted Mansion fan, you'd think I'd have a hard time about that. I'm just excited about something different and something new. I don't care. That my official word on all of that is I'm excited to see it.
What were your thoughts about? Did you see the picture?
The Madame Leota?
Yeah, that it's hard to read because pictures in that room are really hard to take.
I saw was that. I don't know what else you're referring to other than Madame Leota.
The stretching room is like supposedly like they went in, they like really did a deep clean and like
I didn't see that yet.
So the pictures, the portraits are like a lot brighter. They're not in like we've illuminated the room, but they just look better. I saw some pictures that look really nice.
Well, I've discussed this on our Disneyland episode that most of the ride in Disneyland, I don't know if the lights are brighter, but everything you can see so much better.
Yeah.
Especially the graveyard scene at the end is so much more visible.
Well, I think that would be good because there's a lot of stuff. Every time I ride it, I kind of look and notice other things that I couldn't see prior.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering what your take was on that. I will say this about
I'm not going to be mad. I'll be mad if they get rid of it or if they do a permanent overlay of Nightmare Before Christmas. I mean, that's cool.
5 months of Nightmare Before Christmas.
But I could deal with that.
Yeah.
As long as I know it would go back to the classics. But, if they want to add or they want to do little things here and there, if that attraction still exists, cool,
So all I'll say is this. When have the Imagineers really messed up a ride? Like absolutely destroyed it with plussing it, with adding something to it. It hasn't, right?
Mission Space?
No.
I'm kidding. When they've
taken a ride and they've changed it somehow.
Like adding Jack Sparrow.
Correct. Sure. Or changing that scene in on Jungle Cruise. I think that scene that where now they've got
with the monkeys.
Yeah. I think it's great.
Yeah, agree. Or Small World in Disneyland, they added the Pixar characters.
Yeah,
it's fine. It fits. It's in the same Mary Blair style.
So that's why I'm saying I'm going to reserve judgment about where they put Hatbox Ghost. But I just wanted to get your thoughts. I didn't know. We'll have to.
I'm pretty open to it. I'm open-minded. I'm not going to get all mad and bent out of shape. I mean, I would at a certain extent if they were to, close it or change it completely. But it's such a popular attraction, and it's such an old attraction at this point. Did it open in? I should probably know this, but I'm trying to think what year it opened in Disneyland, or if they opened because they made a clone of it and they did two of them at the same time. I know that much. I wonder if they opened at the same time. I gotta go back and look. I'll look that up, and when we come back after the halftime show, I'll
show you a picture of.
I'll give everyone the info
of the stretching room as well
on when the ride opened.
Yep.
All right, cool. Who do we have our halftime show sponsored by today?
This week, our halftime show is sponsored by Stacy. Stacy is actually a traveling agent or travel agent. Forget what travel advisor, I think is the newest term they'll use, but you can find her at Exploring Kingdoms over on Instagram if you wanted to. But she's one of our loyal patrons, and I really appreciate all that she has done as far as promoting the show as well. So thank you, Stacy.
That's cool. Thanks so much.
And we'll be right back after we look up some stuff for you.
Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere, and even earn money all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. And here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or your computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start recording today. Then distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And when you want to take conversations with your fans to the next level, Q&A and polls are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in various ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Welcome back to the Diz List. Today we're going to talk about the top 5 things that we would like to see happen at Disney World in the next 5 years. For me, my list is mostly parks stuff, but we did promise you that Rob was going to look up some stuff about Haunted Mansion in the halftime.
Yeah, so the Haunted Mansion originally opened in Disneyland in 1969. That's 54 years ago. Math courtesy of Wikipedia. I'm not taking credit for math.
Good call.
I use my resources and don't try to do it in my head. At the Magic Kingdom, it looks like it was 1971, which is, it's October 1st, which means
it was an
opening day.
It was an opening day attraction.
Yeah. Okay. So that was 51 years ago. Anyway, and if you're new and you haven't seen the one in Disneyland, they both look very differently. The one in Magic Kingdom is sort of based on the style of mansion in the upstate New York area, like the Albany, Saratoga area type architecture. And the one in Disneyland is in New Orleans Square, and it looks like a southern kind of style of architecture. It has kind of the two different the one higher balcony.
Yeah.
It's sort of that
plantation style.
Yeah, it's more that I think it's originally Spanish architecture, but anyway, so there's a little bit of the Haunted Mansion info for you. I want to make sure I get it right. A lot of times when I know this stuff, but I want to make sure that I'm delivering proper information to everybody.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So this list was fun to do, and it came together for me relatively quickly because it's things that I have kind of readily in my head. Okay, this I'd like to see this. So I had a lot of fun making the list, and you'll see I did a little bit of research for some of the answers as well. So was this as easy for you as it was for me?
I think it was. I would say it was easy. Yes. What wasn't easy was deciding which thing I wanted most.
Okay.
So there's definitely some room for movement on a couple things here.
Yeah.
Certainly there are certain things that are lesser priority, and that's why they're near the bottom of my list, and certain things that are higher priority, and that's why they're near the top. But my 1 may be my 2 tomorrow, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that was the harder part.
And they're close enough where it's not a huge deal if we flip-flop one or the other.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious how many we overlap on. I think there's one that we will, but I'm not sure about all of them. So
I mean, maybe.
So let's see here.
We'll see.
My number 5 is something that we have talked about on our lists before, and it is very complicated.
Okay.
And we've looked this up and researched this quite a bit. And my number 5 is buy back Marvel's park rights for east of the Mississippi. I don't know how much that would cost. I'm sure quite a bit of money.
Based on the recent earnings call, it's probably not happening this year.
Right. So what I've seen, or from looking up the information on this contract, which I have before, and as I looked it up the other night, I realized it's a whole lot more complicated than I remembered. And I tried to find a list. Okay, tell me the characters they can use. And that's really hard to do, too.
Well, it's like a family tree that gets all
correct.
And this is not supposed to be some crazy pun, but it's like a spider web, if you will, of things they can't use, because one connection leads to another connection, leads to another connection.
Sure. And a perfect example of that, well, there's a couple. One is Black Panther.
Right.
So Black Panther has been a member of the Avengers in the comics.
Therefore, he can't
be used. So the Guardians of the Galaxy have always been kind of outside all of that in the comics since their inception for many years. And that Guardians of the Galaxy, the comic book series,
yes,
had a rise in popularity, obviously, when they decided to do the movie all around kind of the same time. The current comic series did really well, so that makes sense that they can have that in the parks. It's not part of the deal. But according to this article that I read, they think that the one property that is a gray area that they could possibly use in Orlando is Doctor Strange. They don't really see Doctor Strange having a tie with one universe or another. And that franchise is very popular right now. The sequel came out, did very well. In California Adventure, that Doctor Strange show does really well. The movies are very popular. You know, Benedict Cumberbatch does an awesome job as that Doctor Strange character.
Yeah, so, I think that's one place they could go. What I would say though is it's not. I don't know that Doctor Strange would have the same pull, or you could do a lot of theming the same way you can do with Guardians.
Right. And I'm looking at it this way. Well, let me touch on that and then I'll get back to my point here. Is with Guardians you get a handful of great characters.
Oh yeah.
You know, Rocket Raccoon, Bradley Cooper's Rocket Raccoon. Bradley Cooper made that character cool.
Yeah.
Gamora. Groot has multiple versions of Groot.
Yeah, I love it.
Baby Groot is like, Grogu, Baby Yoda, super cute character for kids. But then the teen Groot, and then you have adult Groot. Like, there's all these different versions of it. Drax, honestly, is one of my favorite MCU characters. I think Drax is hilarious. I think Batista's underrated. Batista needs to be in more movies. But my point is I guess it's A or B. So if they can't buy the rights back, and we're talking the next 5 years, it's possible. So if they can't buy the rights back, okay, maybe go the Doctor Strange route. Okay, don't go the Doctor Strange route. If you plan on buying it back, go for X-Men, go for, something that's going to be Fantastic Four. Marvel movies, for people who are not really big Marvel fans, I know the movies do really well, but Kevin Feige, who's in charge of that universe, has said they're going to start leaning into Fantastic Four and X-Men, which were properties that were purchased or licenses from, I can't think of the proper term for it, from Fox, a handful of years ago.
Let me just tell you.
Yeah.
The amount of Fantastic Four merch in the parks, specifically pins.
You did tell me that. I remember.
It was a lot. It's said to me this is either they made these pins and they're selling this merch to maybe test, because like the merch is going to eventually sell, and if it doesn't sell, you can sell it for cost on Shop Disney, right?
Yeah.
But depending on how well it sells, maybe they can gauge some interest about attraction wise,
and I think
movies, even making movies.
Well, they've already announced they're making that Fantastic Four movie. I don't know the release date off the top of my head, but it's probably maybe 2 years away.
Not now with the SAG
That's true.
SAG-AFTRA.
I'm sure that backed it up more. But Disney did leak the information. I know the stuff's all purposeful. It's not an accident.
Yeah.
But they did a casting for Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. Do you know who they cast for that?
No.
They cast the kid who is in Stranger Things, who is the Metallica kid, the guitar player, the heavy metal kid, who became super famous and popular for playing that Master Puppets Metallica song. Kind of blew up as this, popular character. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but listeners who are familiar with Stranger Things they know what character I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the pins, the announcement of who is going to be playing the Human Torch, I think all these things are starting to create this simmer, which hopefully will come to a boil when they cast that Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great thing to ask Disney to do, is to put more Marvel in the parks. You paid top dollar for Marvel rights. They are the movies that probably have made you the most money in the last decade, right?
Well, we may find out later on my list.
That and Star Wars have made them a lot of money.
Yes.
So therefore, like in my mind, why not lean heavy into that? I'm not saying I want the whole park to be, like Islands of Adventure has like the whole comic area.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I want that.
It's cheesy though.
That's a word for it. Trashy. That's
it really
another
is.
word. It's not good.
And I like a lot about that park. I'm not a Universal hater for our listeners.
Right.
I like a lot about Universal Studios.
That part is horrible.
That part is very poorly done.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with it. I think that's a great one to have. My number 5, so kind of went a little bit of a different route here than adding stuff. Mine was actually, which I guess you could technically roll yours into it, was replacement of redundant/irrelevant rides.
Okay.
So what I mean by this is spinners. Like, you don't need to have so many spinners in the park. Specifically in Magic Kingdom, I don't like that they have 2 Dumbos and magic carpets.
Right.
I don't have a problem with them having 2 Dumbos because it helps with capacity.
Mm-hmm.
I have a problem with them having a spinner on the other side of the park. That is like a horrible spinner. Like, it's not.
Well, if you follow our Patreon, or if you subscribe to our Patreon, we did a whole retheme. We could pick something. It's called the bulldoze one.
Yeah.
We could bulldoze something. I came up with an entire idea to get rid of that and make a whole Aladdin area. Well, I guess it's not getting rid of the
You didn't
spinner.
get rid of it. You wanted to
It's
add.
in addition to.
Yeah.
But
You bulldozed a different attraction. But
right.
check that out.
Check out our Patreon. And did you say people can download individual episodes now?
Yeah, that episode I think you can purchase for individual consumption.
Cool.
That's correct.
That's awesome.
So other things like Speedway, Tomorrowland Speedway, that's irrelevant now. Not irrelevant, but certainly needs some TLC.
I have an idea for that too.
We've talked about it multiple times. Yeah. Rock and Roller Coaster, the whole Aerosmith stuff. I was at a wedding this past weekend, and a family member was talking to me about my trip and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, "Oh, did you get to ride Rock and Roller Coaster?" And I said, "Well, it was down, even though it had been shut down for refurbishment." And they're like, "Oh, I love that ride." I was like, so do I, but it needs to not be Aerosmith. It should be Muppets. And they were like, "That's such a great idea." And I'm like, you know where you can find out about it? You too can play my podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Anyway, so those rides that are either redundant or irrelevant or like just dated, I want to see them get replaced. The reason I think this is, while it's a lower priority for me, is because it doesn't add capacity, and I think they need to add capacity. It's a lower, that's important to me is adding capacity, but this is on the lower end, but it's still kind of important because there are rides that this really would add capacity in a way, because you go by these rides and there's no wait because they're not great.
Yeah. I just think Disney also needs, and this is not on my list, I'm just a comment, they need to focus on creating attractions with more Omni-Mover systems. So the Omni-Mover systems are kind of a way of riding a ride that is like Haunted Mansion, that is like The Little Mermaid, where the carts just keep going and going and going. Nemo is like that. There's quite a few. Spaceship Earth, and we like to call those people eaters. The more cars you have, the more people you can get on it, the more it can consume people during that time. So I hope Disney looks to do some more of those, and maybe not as much roller coastery things where there's definitely a low number of people that can go on them.
So actually, I'm gonna because I did not know this either. The capacity at Omnimovers is actually lower than coasters.
What?
I got corrected by a listener.
Really?
Who said, I understand that it seems like it because you're constantly moving one step at a time.
Yeah.
But they're like, loading 45 people every 30 seconds and sending the train off loads faster than loading 2 people every second and a half.
Wow.
And I was like,
That's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, they're kind of right.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like,
I thought that's very interesting.
I thought the same thing as you.
Sure.
And then I was corrected, and I was like, all right, well, I guess that kind of makes sense, right? Like, but anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that roller coasters actually do have a higher, like, they send more people per hour through Guardians than they do, and Tron, than they do through like Peter Pan.
Wow.
Which is why Peter Pan has such a long line.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A line. And why Small World doesn't, because Small World loads so many at a time.
Yeah.
Or why, Pirates, they load, how many people fit in a boat?
A lot.
Was it 5 rows of 4, I think?
Yeah, I mean,
Something
you could
like
fit
that.
5 too.
Yeah, for
Depending.
smaller children. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't disagree. We need to have something that allows for that capacity, and Omnimovers would be a great idea. I did want to point out, because I didn't mention it in our recap episode, I finally did Tomorrowland Speedway. I got off with a headache, both from the noise and the fumes.
Yeah.
I've got to do it. Never done it. I'm going to do it this time, and checked it off the list. Won't do it again. So,
yeah, you don't need to.
Yeah, but hopefully it's gone, because that's my number 5 is replacement of redundant and irrelevant rides.
Well, your Tomorrowland Speedway point is going to come up here in mine for my number 4. So my number 4 was very interesting and eye-opening. My number 4 was take a look at the most lucrative Disney franchises and focus on adding or creating attractions based on them.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
So what I did was I did a little research, and I saw, what their total revenue has been since their existence. And I looked at all of them, and I mean, the list is very long, and it's not all Disney things. So number 1 overall, I mean, Mickey Mouse is number 1 for Disney, but it's 2 overall, Mickey and Friends. How much money is Mickey and Friends earned?
Right.
Can you guess what number 1 overall is?
Number 1 above Mickey and Friends?
That is the most lucrative franchise there is over Mickey and Friends. I'll give you a hint. You know it.
Yeah. I mean,
do you know it off the top of your head?
So I'm flipping a coin mentally in my head.
Sure. I mean, take a guess. You could do guess A and B.
So I'm going to say,
I bet you can.
I'm going to say it's either Marvel or Star Wars, and whichever one it's not is number 3.
It's Pokemon.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah, Pokemon was 1. Pokemon with, I didn't put the number, but Mickey Mouse and Friends. Yeah, look it up. 52.2 billion is Mickey Mouse. And then it's Winnie the Pooh with $48.4 billion.
Disney doesn't own the rights to Pokemon.
No. I know that. I just asked you if you knew what number 1 was. Disney's. So there's a total list of all the different franchises and how much money they've made.
Never mind.
The highest for Disney is number 2 overall, and that's Mickey.
Never mind.
The number 1 overall in existence of money-making franchises is Pokemon. That's the first.
Okay.
So if I misspoke, that's on me.
I was thinking you were saying I want to look at I thought you were saying you wanted to look at the most lucrative rights that Disney owns.
I did. So what I did was I made a list, and I'm going to go through them in a second.
But you went through all first.
Yeah.
And then,
I went through everything. And there's a lot that obviously Disney doesn't own. I mean, there's Batman and all kinds of things that are on this list. Yep. Right. A Call of Duty was on the list. I think they may even were in the top 20. It was wild. So the first, so when I go through these, I'm going to do them in number of just the Disney ones. I'm leaving out everything else other than Pokemon. I'm going to go through the list of what I found were the highest money makers. And keep in mind, too, this is Mickey Mouse's money made since 1928. So Winnie the Pooh is 1924. So that's all the money that Winnie the Pooh has made. That's why it's skewed. You're a numbers guy. You get it.
Yep.
So Winnie the Pooh is 2. But when I say 2, it is not 2. It is 2 when we're looking at all of the properties that Disney owns. So it's not 2 overall, just so people are knowing that.
Yeah.
So Winnie the Pooh, then Star Wars, which you got.
Yep.
Star Wars, and that is, I don't have to do the numbers, so it's $46.7 billion. Then they lump Disney princesses together. So the next one they had on the list was Disney princesses.
Makes sense,
Yep. Because they make a lot of money off the Disney princess merchandising as well. Because it'll be like my daughter had those growing up. I'm sure your daughter has them now. So Disney princesses. Then Marvel Cinematic Universe. Okay. Which is different than some of the other Marvel stuff too. Then the next one is really where I want to get to, and that's Cars. Cars is next on the list. Above Lion King. So Lion King is the one. So let's look at Cars. Right now, Cars, this is my entire point rests on Cars here. Okay. There's a couple more I'll go through, but Cars just has that one little bing bong attraction in the back corner behind Rock and Roller Coaster.
Right. It's not really an attraction.
Right. And after going to California and seeing Cars Land, they gotta do more in Walt Disney World with Cars. Actually, that's not true. They have more with Cars. The one resort that they have, the Art of Animation, it's kind of cool.
In the parks, they have one little tiny.
That's what I'm saying.
Sleeper attraction that most people just skip over.
Maybe they redo the Tomorrowland Speedway. I don't know. So Cars, so there's one. Cars is $21.5 billion over the Lion King. Then Toy Story.
Yeah.
Then Frozen. Then Pirates of the Caribbean, which is really impressive. That Pirates is that high up on the list.
Well, Pirates is that high because they made that many movies.
Yeah, and that's great. That's great. And obviously they have a presence in the park. But then the next one is really interesting. It was shocking to me that this next one was on the list. That Disney now owns from Fox, and that's Ice Age. Isn't that weird?
I don't want Ice Age.
But I'm just, kids like it. I realize you don't, and maybe I don't. But maybe if there's an Ice Age attraction, maybe it's a huge hit for the kids. I don't know. Comment on this, folks, if you're an Ice Age fan.
So here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing they built a Toy Story land. They should have built a Lion King land.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing,
but like,
or they
it's
should
on the list. They should in addition to, because it's a moneymaker. That was a good choice.
I think that bringing in more lucrative or more popular IP into the parks is important. And I've said multiple times that Lion King deserves more attention. In fact, it was right before we released our recap episodes, we did the top 5 IP that needs more love in the parks, and Lion King was on my list for a reason. Cars was on a list, I think your list, for a reason. Mm-hmm. A Cars land in Orlando would do amazing things.
It would crush.
And there's, to my knowledge, there's room in Hollywood Studios for them to do that, because they could connect without having to do too much with. So all the stone and stuff in Star Wars land could very easily start blending into the Cars world, right? So what I mean by that is, if you saw stone in the skyline in the background that is in Batuu, it wouldn't necessarily detract from the appearance of stone in Cars world, or Cars land. So there would be a way for them to do it. I just don't know that they'll do it as a clone, just because of the whole like test track is already there.
They're different enough,
and
like not everybody would pick that out. Okay. Really, it's different enough that people may not associate it being the same thing.
Well, then let me just say this: I hope they don't do clones, just because I want them to be more creative and do something else. But yeah, look, Disney's stupid if they don't take advantage of their more lucrative properties.
Yep, that's my number 4. Sorry, that one was a longer one.
That's okay.
But interesting info there.
Yeah, my number 4 is something that we have talked about numerous times on the show. I want to see come in the parks in the next 5 years, and they could phase it in over 5 years. It wouldn't be as much of a shock, and it wouldn't cause as much of a hubbub, and that is more walk-around characters.
Great.
Disneyland wins this hands down the time.
It was so exciting.
So if you slowly introduce more walk-around characters to Disney World, what you will find is the mobs won't be as bad, right? If you slowly introduce it. They've already started doing that in Hollywood Studios, right? So you've got...
Yeah, you told me you saw quite a bit.
Yeah, so you've got the stormtroopers walking around. You see Rey walking around. You see Chewie walking around. Sometimes you see them walking around together. And then, of course, you see Mando now with Grogu. They're basically walk-around characters. Now, Mando and Grogu were mobbed. But once that novelty wears off, then you introduce a new one, and then you introduce a new one, then you introduce a new one, and the novelty starts wearing off. They already do it with, I mean, does Big Al get mobbed? No.
No.
Does Liver Lips get mobbed? No. Does Wendell get mobbed? No. Are they the only walk-around characters you can see on a consistent basis in Magic Kingdom?
Yes.
Yes, but you know you're gonna see them. So if you know during a given day you might run into, Mary Poppins walking around, not just standing in the little gazebo in the UK garden, but like walking around the UK in the shop.
Why not in the Magic Kingdom?
Or she could be.
She could be there too.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just saying, like, it's because you have a video of Epcot up on the screen right now.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things, those kinds of ideas, I think we need to start thinking about that because, for instance, my daughter loves Moana. We did the meet and greet with Moana over in Animal Kingdom. It was great. It was a wonderful experience. It took 35 or 40 minutes waiting in line, which whatever.
That's not awful.
It's not awful. It's a lot though. It's not awful for an 8-year-old, right? And an 11-year-old to wait in line. It would be awful. In fact, people left the line because it's Animal Kingdom, it's hot. They left the line because they couldn't deal with it with their kid because it was too hot. Now, if you see Moana walking by and she waves to your kid, I believe that that's equally as memorable for that child.
Correct, because they don't want to collect a photo like an adult does.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. These photo opportunities are for us, not for our kids.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it.
Yep.
If I think back to like growing up, when I went to like a professional baseball game, or if I went to, somewhere where I saw a concert, I wasn't, oh my gosh, I got my picture taken with so-and-so. It was, I saw Larry Walker. I saw Vladimir Guerrero hit a home run. Mine are all going to be Expos because I grew up so close to Montreal. But like, I saw Gary Carter.
That's the only one I know that you've said so far.
Vladimir Guerrero, you don't know?
No, I do not. I am not a baseball person.
He's a Hall of Famer. I saw him in one game hit 3 home runs. One that was over his head, one that was off his shoelaces, and one that was down the middle. The guy was a freak, and now his son plays for the Blue Jays. Anyway, so that was our little detraction there. So I think walk-around characters, because that will be just as memorable for the kids, and I think it'll make Disney's life a little bit easier too. If they have more walk-around characters, they don't have to necessarily staff like the PhotoPass people that are there, or like use prime real estate to have a meet and greet set up. So that's my number 4. My number 4 is walk around characters.
I think that's a great idea. I completely support that one.
So we haven't lined up yet. Let's see if we start getting closer here on number 3.
All right. Number 3 is I would like in the next 5 years to have Disney extend the monorail and or the Skyliner. Why not?
I think Skyliner's more likely than monorail.
Yeah. But why couldn't they do monorail too? Why couldn't they go completely through Epcot and link all the way over to Hollywood Studios? Think about it.
I am. I don't think that's realistic. I think the Skyliner is.
No, I'm saying both or one or the other. I think would be a cool thing to do.
Yeah, so the monorail is. So at the bottom of my list, I said replacement of redundant and irrelevant rides. Mm-hmm. I think the monorail is a dated form of transportation at Magic Kingdom.
It can be. I can see that point of view, but I think if you're a young kid coming in and seeing this thing that is like a train that you've never seen before, it's exciting, and I think I don't know. It's an opinion. I don't agree with you, but it's definitely a way to look at it.
I'm Team Skyliner all the way.
Sure.
Skyliner,
But I like that too.
I agree with you that they should extend those. I think there is no reason that there are that there are resorts that do not have one of those unique forms of transportation.
Right. Yeah.
There's no reason. You can say distance all you want. I want you to pull up a map, if you will, listeners at home. We talk about how Animal Kingdom is so far away from everything else. Pull up a map. Which park is actually away from everything? It's Magic Kingdom. Uh-huh. It is not Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, it's way far north.
Magic Kingdom is the one that's far away from everything.
Yep.
Is there a form of transportation that connects Magic Kingdom with Epcot? Yes. So therefore, there's no reason that Animal Kingdom and all of the resorts in the Animal Kingdom area and the Disney Springs area and the boardwalk area and the monorail loop, why they can't all be connected is ridiculous. They can be.
Because I was thinking that it can connect from, let's say, Caribbean Beach, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of their hubs. There's actually 2 hubs at Caribbean Beach.
Right.
Extend it from there somehow over to Disney Springs. Then from there, obviously, it's, money making, shopping. Then from Disney Springs, connect somewhere over in the area of, not necessarily Wilderness Lodge, maybe those resorts over there, maybe one of the DVC resorts like Key West or one of those. Like that's kind of a nice connection to everything, and then go all the way down, like you said, to Animal Kingdom.
So getting from resort to resort is not easy, right? If you don't have a car to get to another resort, you have to either go to the TTC, you have to go to Disney Springs, or you have to go to a park first to then catch a mode of transportation to another resort. Unless you're on the monorail or you're on the Skyliner. You cannot tell me that Disney has not seen the impact on Caribbean Beach.
Oh, yeah.
Or on Coronado Springs, or even on the All-Stars, not All-Stars, Art of Animation. You can't tell me they have not seen a financial impact on food and bev at those locations now that there's a Skyliner. They definitely have. And so I think that your wish is not that far off. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I think it would be cool. They've discussed it, but I haven't heard any more about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it would be monorail for a number of reasons, not the least of which is the absolute massive cost of the infrastructure needed.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I agree. They should extend some sort of a form of transportation like that. Mm-hmm. That's not buses.
Yep.
So my number 3 is to use dead space. So what I mean by this is, no matter how packed it's ever been when I'm there, and maybe when you were there during the holidays you saw this, but I don't know. Tortuga Tavern is never open anymore, right?
Yes.
It's like go over and get stuff from Pecos Bills, but you can sit here.
I think it's only been open once when I've been there.
Right. The Muppets area that is all closed down over in Hollywood Studios. Like they've got entire gift shops, they've got entire areas over there that aren't used.
Yep.
To a certain extent, the Imagination Pavilion is a lot of dead space.
Yeah.
I mean, you come out and it's like, oh, there's all these, like, I don't want to call them video games, but experiences. There's nothing that works ever.
Yeah, it used to be awesome.
And then since 2019, it might even be earlier than that, but since 2019, even though Disney owns and operates 2 water parks, only one of them has ever been operating at a given time.
Yeah, they're refurbishing the other at the same time.
That's dead space. I want to see Disney get rid of the dead space. Whether that means you're running both of the water parks, or you open Tortuga into a everyday eatery, or you change them all together. Tortuga becomes some sort of attraction area. The Muppets area, leave it Muppets, or don't. I don't care, but don't have these whole places just shut down that aren't even running. You get out of Muppet Vision 3D, right? You get out, you come out of Muppet Vision.
And you're like, what's this?
Oh, cool. I want to go in there.
Big Kermit.
I want to go into this store. Oh, what store? And I'm not talking like it's themed like, oh, we're coming back. There's Scrim Up. It's just like, yeah, we're not open. It is so bizarre to me that they have just abandoned that whole area in my mind. I just think that the use of dead space right now, and I'm specifically skipping some stuff that I'm not talking about right now because it's going to show up later about that I wouldn't qualify as dead space. So if you're thinking, well, he's not talking about certain things at a certain park that probably count as dead space, it's coming.
Yeah.
I think because I know that for me, the issue I have is like they have entire infrastructure already built and you're not using it. Like there's nothing worse than like, oh, I would really like to go and get something to eat. And it's like, oh, there's not, you got to go over to Pecos Bills or, hey, you know, coming out of the imagination and you're like, oh, cool. Look at this big giant room that there's nobody here doing anything. It's so weird to me. So
could be a restaurant,
or it could be a whole other attraction, or they could use it for something. Or it could be an extension of the attraction that needs so much love. Maybe that's where they're going to do the meet and greet for Figment. I don't know. But number 3, use dead space.
Yeah, my number 2 is also something that needs love, and they just did Tron in Magic Kingdom. In Epcot, they're adding a lot in the center, and they just did Guardians of the Galaxy, and in Hollywood Studios they did plenty of things, but Animal Kingdom is kind of at the end of the list. They did Avatar, which was great and is an awesome area, but Animal Kingdom now should be, you know, if you play a card and you discard, Animal Kingdom should be on the top now, because it's, you know, they played Hollywood Studios, Epcot, Magic Kingdom.
Look,
now it's a very easy one.
If you're
I don't even have to say a lot.
If you're counting cards,
exactly.
If you're counting cards, Animal Kingdom's, there's more of Animal Kingdom in the deck,
and that's it. All I'm saying is now it's time to expand that park. It's very important too. It's a great park. I know you agree with me. It's underrated. There's a lot of good things to do, but there needs to be more things to do to bring more people there.
There's zero disagreement coming from me.
Yeah, they got.
I love that park, and it doesn't even mean expansion. It could just mean, which I do think they could do and should do, but it might even just be like at least give it some love, because there's lots of dead space in that park too.
Yeah.
This wasn't one of the things I was thinking about, but like, try over in Dinoland, like we talk about it ad nauseum on this show, but like Primeval Whirl has been gone for 5 years, something like that.
And that's dead space too, right? Where that is.
Yeah.
So you do the same thing, and I know we both do this. We'll turn on YouTube and like different things pop up, right? And because of the algorithm, sometimes things pop up that you're like, oh, this is interesting. So it was a helicopter ride over Walt Disney World, and I watched it last night, and I was like, just try to guess where everything. Okay, that's Disney Springs. This is, Typhoon Lagoon. When they got to Animal Kingdom, there really is a lot of space on the sides.
So the issue is, and I don't know if you could tell this in the helicopter ride, but when I was on the backstage tour, so it's you can fit all of the other parks inside of Animal Kingdom and still have room for, I think he said 2 of the parking lots. The parking lot at Epcot and the parking lot at Hollywood Studios. It was some ridiculous amount.
Yeah, the safari is huge.
He's like, a lot of that's the savannah, but a lot of it isn't. Because we have those animals, we have to have the facilities to take care of them.
Yep.
So some of what you think you could expand is actually areas where they have animal barns that are well disguised that you couldn't necessarily tell from a helicopter ride, I think. But there are places where they can expand. On the way out to Rafiki's, there's places on the, I guess it would be on the east side.
That's the part I was kind of referring to.
On the east side, the animal barns aren't over there.
Yeah.
They could expand some there. Even near the front, like that whole entrance area is such a waste.
Yeah,
such a waste.
Because that whole area from the front all the way to Nemo, for example, and then all of that space to the east of all that, based on what I saw in that helicopter, it looked like that was a lot of just, trees and jungle space.
There's dead space even in like the theming. So like some of the buildings are dead space there. I know, like for instance, like Tusker House takes up a lot more of those buildings in Africa than you realize how much it expands back. But yeah, I'm with you. Expansion and giving some love to Animal Kingdom is
It's their turn. And the good news about that is when Josh Tomorrow got up and talked about the future, that was mentioned. So, but then again, a lot of times he mentions things like the Play Pavilion or, something else that doesn't actually end up happening.
I'm going to be honest with you, and this is going to be, and I'm not looking to get into a political debate. I don't think you will see anything announced officially at anything in Orlando of any kind of expansion or major investment until they have the whole garbage with DeSantis figured out.
Yeah, you might be right.
And I don't think you will see any investment. And I think it's going to be a flex by Disney of like, cool, that's fine. We don't care. Like, we're making money elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because in the last earnings call, he's like, yeah, well, we're up a little bit in this branch. Oh, by the way, it was made up for by the Disney Cruise Lines, which everybody is flooding. Like, the minute the cruise lines go on sale, like for a sailing, they sell out super quickly.
Wow.
So they're like, fine, we'll just keep doing that. And sure, Florida will get some revenue from when we leave your dock.
That's it.
But I think they're flexing right now, being like, we don't care that the attendance is down because you're the ones losing out on sales tax. So I do think that you're not going to see any. That's why I said next 5 years, because a lot more will be cleared up in the next year with respect to that particular those particular lawsuits, because you can't just have one.
Yeah,
you got to have two. It's like Lay's chips, right? You can't just have one.
Gotta have them.
So yeah, that's a good one. My number 2 is something that we have talked about. We have not overlapped yet, so this is.
I think we're overlapping here.
So my number 2 is going to match your number 1?
I think so.
I don't know. My number 1 and your number 1 are the same.
Okay.
But anyway, number 2, it has to do with extended evening hours.
No, that's not mine.
So my number 2 is that extended evening hours are valuable, and I understand that they're only for deluxe resort people. And I get it if you're listening to this saying, well, I can't afford to stay in a deluxe. I understand that. And I don't necessarily think that it's completely correct that you don't get to enjoy it. But there should be some incentive to staying deluxe, because the reality is that all the resorts have really good accommodations now. All the resorts have decent pools now. Most resorts have pools better than Bay Lake Tower. That's for sure. That's a 100%. My neighbor has a better pool.
I don't know if I want to swim in a rusty pool.
Yeah, my neighbor has a better pool than Bay Lake Tower. Anyway, so my thing is, I think the extended evening hours need to expand to all of the parks, and that can be easily done. Or just replace Epcot's. Epcot's extended evening hours were useless last summer, are even more useless now. I think I told you this. They closed down
the majority of World Showcase.
Come out of France, go to turn right. We're gonna go ride Frozen. Nope. No, you're not. Because we've closed from France all the way over to Norway. You can get to Norway by walking all the way around. And I was like, why would I do that? Why would I walk all the way around through the front to go back to Norway and then go and do the front of the park?
I'm trying to think of why. Is it because they're not going to hire people to staff those shops? Can they close those shops?
They do.
Right. So what? I don't understand.
They do. Nothing is open in Epcot for extended evening hours.
That's bizarre.
There are a couple kiosks that sell water, soda, Mickey bars, and popcorn. That's what's open in Epcot for extended evening hours. So it's not like they have to staff those. I mentioned it when I met up with Ear Scouts Rob. I mentioned it to him. He's like, they did what? He's like, they've been doing that for a while with like the hard ticket events, or they've done it like for like the parties and like stuff like that, but they did it for extended evening hours. I said, yeah. So that's good to know, because it would change my strategy. If you're in the front of the park, you come in and you do like Space Mountain. I do that all the time.
Spaceship Earth. I know what you meant.
You do Spaceship Earth, right? You come in, you do Spaceship Earth, and you're like, oh, I want to do the front half, and then I'm going to do Frozen. And then from Frozen, I'm going to go to Remy.
Maybe you shouldn't.
There was I've watched plenty of walkthroughs, and never once has anybody mentioned that they were doing that. It is ridiculous. The park's it's not a fun park to do. You did it with me. There's too much walking in between each ride that it's not worth the extended evening hours. But Hollywood Studios is beautiful at night. They don't get extended evening hours unless Epcot has some kind of event going on. Then they'll open up and do, okay, well, this week, the Wednesday night will be Hollywood Studios.
Speaking of beautiful at night.
Well, I was getting there. Animal Kingdom, like unless you're going there in the winter, you aren't seeing Animal Kingdom at night. You aren't seeing Pandora
Land at night. Oh my God!
You aren't seeing Pandora at night.
Pandora at night is unbelievable. It was the first time we went to Pandora, and we lucked out that, the hours were late enough that we walked through there, and everything was glowing. It was like it was the closest to really feeling like those movies.
They close Animal Kingdom at 7:00.
I know.
7:00. So in the summer, you're not seeing it dark. Why couldn't they do a 7 to 9? I would, as a parent, hell yeah, give me a 7:00 to a 9:00 Animal Kingdom extended evening hours, because then I'm doing extended evening hours and I'm not waking up to do the next day and feeling like, wow, I was up till 1:00, like you are when you do Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom is definitely worth it.
Oh, for sure.
Animal Kingdom, like that would be fun just to walk around.
Magic Kingdom is just as beautiful at night than in the daytime.
The extended evening hours need to change. They need to be expanded.
So I'm obviously it's an audio medium. We make this comment all the time, but I'm bringing up on screen right now what it looks like in Pandora at night.
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's unreal, and seeing it in person is just everything glows and everything kind of looks bioluminescent. Obviously, it's not actually bioluminescent, but
yeah. So that's my number 2. So I'm
pretty impressive.
Now I'm thinking maybe we do match up on number 1.
I think so too.
We might not.
One thing that I think that Disney needs to do in the next 5 years to really solve many, many problems is hire more cast members.
Oh, no, it's not mine.
My number 1 is hire more cast members. Here's why. It's going to help with ride testing. This is all based on our conversations we've had on your trip, and that's why this all came in. Yes. So ride testing. You hire more cast members to come in early, test the rides. So when somebody like Nick and his family go on vacation, they're not going straight to Star Wars Rise and it's not working because they didn't test the ride. Hire more people. Next one, cleaning. You're waiting in line to see Olaf and the wall has crud on it, or someone just elbowed it and put a hole in the wall. You hire extra people to go through and do all the cleaning of rides. And within the last year, there's a Disney news station that I will watch, that they made mention of the boats in Small World and how they were dirty. And this news organization gets some traction, and shortly after that, the boats were starting to get cleaned up. But if there was someone who could keep an eye on that would help. Next, meet and greets. You can have more meet and greets. You can have more walk-around characters. You mentioned that earlier. That's all kind of part under the umbrella. Next one's a big one. You've mentioned this a lot too. Tech help. So there's no online chat. I went to do it the other day to ask a question about my upcoming trip. There's no how you can do a chat on most sites?
There are.
I couldn't find it.
Yeah. No, you want to know why you couldn't find it? Because they have 5 people, I'm convinced. That's all they have that do it. And once all 5 are taken up, they take the button away.
Oh my God.
Because
then
you would be more frustrated waiting for it.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's because you only have 5 people working.
So, and last but not least, security. With the increase in fights and all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the parks, or just someone to go, hey, stop running, please. I think maybe even some kind of semi-undercover security. I don't know.
Hold on, hear me out.
Sure.
What if the walk-around characters were security? Could you imagine seeing Big Al tackle somebody?
Have the characters dress up with a sheriff badge.
That would be something else, yeah. Mickey walking around with
taser.
Yeah. Or Woody walking around.
Yeah, I was trying to think of
hands to the sky. That would be funny.
So my number 1, this is very important, is hire more cast members. And if you listen and you are a cast member, we appreciate you so much, because 99% of all the cast members I've ever met were fantastic and so accommodating and so nice. And I can't even think of that 1%, but I just know the majority of anyone that I've ever known or met or had any experience with.
I can think of the 1%. Alice on my last trip.
Okay.
Alice was the grumpiest human being I've ever seen in my last
trip.
And
that happens too. And you know what? I know it's happened to me too, but I must have just pushed that out of my brain and focused on the positive.
She was grumpy 2 days in a row.
Oh boy.
Like borderline yelling at people about where they needed to stand to take her picture. It was so ridiculous.
Well, my number one Disney in the next 5 years, focus on your cast members, pay them what they deserve, and hire more of them. And you know what? It's going to bring more people, and it's going to make for a better experience overall.
Well, I just want to add to one of the things you mentioned about hiring more cast members because it would allow them to clean up the rides and keep them looking good. I don't know. They might do this. I don't know that they do, but they might do this. Somebody needs to walk through each queue at the end of each night, very slowly looking to see.
Make a list.
And just go, oh, there's a damaged part here. There's a damaged part here. At the beginning, it's going to be overwhelming and your maintenance costs are going to go through the roof because there's a lot of stuff to fix. But once they're all fixed, now you're only keeping up. Now it doesn't become fixing all the crap I neglected. It's fixing the stuff that happened today, and that's it.
Yep.
There was a lot of garbage, like in the moat when I was there last time. It was not good. There were like ears that had fallen off of people that were in there. There were wrappers everywhere. And I'm not talking like this is one day's worth of stuff. So I agree with you. More cast members, especially on custodial and like maybe like testing, like you said, the behind the scenes, maybe not the front of house or the people who you see. But it will make an impact. I agree with you.
And I will say, of everything that we've mentioned, the custodial staff is doing a great job. They just need more.
They can't do it all.
It's like you have a school and at the school everyone's crazy and there's so many behavior issues.
Right. Well,
they
it's not
need
even
more help.
It's not even the custodial staff. It's the maintenance people who then have to come in and paint the queue or fix the stickers that have been ripped off or whatever it is. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. My number one is where I thought you were going because we have talked about this, and mine is expansion. I want to see expansion in the park in the next 5 years, and I don't mean necessarily, although it does fall under this umbrella, I don't necessarily mean a fifth gate. There is room for expansion. Like I talked about using dead space, right? This would be all new construction. There are expansion pads at Epcot. Use it. They're the Beyond Thunder Mountain stuff. Like, actually, you know what? Commit to it. Don't say we're thinking about doing this. We'll let you know once we've thought about it if we really think it's a good idea. But we're gonna think about it. Like that's like when the parent says, "We'll see." Like as a kid, you knew. Yeah. That means no. That means no. We'll see? No. You're not going to see. You already just say no to me. You just don't want me to cry in the store when I asked you if we can go to McDonald's after this. You said, we'll see. Well, here we are as fans. Can we get expansion? Answer us. Commit to it. Don't say, we're going to think about possibly one day sitting down to think more. Like, say we're going to actually do it. And hire solid Imagineers to do it, because I've got news for you. Universal, they're almost done with their park.
And they hired a bunch of Disney's Imagineers to help do it.
And don't forget about the other place where a whole bunch of retired Imagineers and former Imagineers are now going to be apparently building a park in the middle of America in Oklahoma. And don't forget about Universal's two, like Hollywood or the
Texas and Vegas,
the Terror Nights. The Vegas one's gonna be more along the, like, don't forget about that, because now people don't need to travel from Oklahoma to Disney to get a theme park experience, and they don't have to spend $10,000 on that trip.
Yep.
If you give them a reason to come, and a reason to come is not a new fireworks spectacular, a reason to come is not walking through an attraction that has Tafiti and you're getting sprayed with water, that is not a reason to come. A reason to come is rides like Rise of the Resistance when it opened. There are rides like Guardians of the Galaxy. And a reason to come is like what happened when they put Pandora in Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
People
agree with all of that.
People flocked. Think about the insane videos you could see when they opened up Star Wars Land or when they opened up Toy Story Land. When Batuu opened, when Toy Story Land opened, it was insane in the parks for a reason. And it was like that for a long time.
Yep. I'm
convinced they paid for Toy Story Land by having their early morning hard-ticketed events that I attended. It was like $100. Hey, you're going to get lunch over at ABC or at Backlot Express, and you get an hour in Toy Story Land early before other people. Oh,
Awesome.
sure.
Cool.
Me and 1,000 or 2,000 of my best friends were in there at the same time, and they did that 3 times a week for 2 or 3 years.
That's money.
You know, like, I'm not saying, hey, do this for a money grab, but it can help you defray some of the costs. And
It's a money grab for a reason, though. Like, you're being specific.
I stand by my belief that you're not going to see expansion. You're not going to see dead space change. You're not going to see a solid investment in Florida until after the whole political nonsense gets taken care of. Once that gets taken care of, and the picture is clearer, then I think you'll start seeing actual commitments. But that will happen in the next couple of years. And then in the next 5 years, I want to see a commitment to expansion because it needs to happen, right? Both for a capacity sake and Disney, you know, honestly, it would make life more enjoyable for the people who are there.
Yeah, it would.
It spreads people out. And countries in Epcot, that's just a no-brainer.
Yes. I thought of that one too.
That's a no-brainer. So that's what I want to see. That's my number one. Do you have any honorable mentions?
No, not really. I spent so much time going through and doing the list of the the different franchises. I don't have one, and I also think that it's great that we didn't match up. And I would say, for the most part, we were pretty agreeable and interested in each other's choices. So this ended up being a bigger and a little bit longer of an episode. But if I were listening to it, it'd be interesting because you're getting more.
Yeah.
Ideas.
The only thing that I would say that I want to add is I want to see a return to cooler heads prevailing in the parks.
Yeah.
I didn't put it on my list because Disney doesn't control it, but be kind, people. Mm-hmm. You know, it's okay to get angry. I get it. It's okay to get frustrated, and then you step back, take a deep breath, and be like, all right, not the cast member's fault, not my kid's fault, it's 95 with a real feel of 107.
It's hard.
Step back. So, but thank you for listening. If you haven't signed on to Instagram, Twitter, Threads, all the things, we are at DizListPod. You can follow us there. You can also check us out on Patreon, www.patreon.com/DizListPod, where you can get early access to new episodes, as well as you get some special mini episodes. So please, follow us, support us. We really appreciate it. But it's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, and tomorrow's just a list away.
Tune in next time, and we'll see you real soon.